Do you guys hear that sound? It's bothering me. I might have ADHD. So, most of you guys here are students, right? Even if you're not, you're most probably a student sometime in your life because it is such an influential and crucial part of our lives, right? I mean, without it, it's almost impossible to get a high-paying career or job. And so most of us, we study. I mean, I hope you do, but... And this puts a lot of pressure on students who's trying to succeed. My friend had the same problem. Let's call him Michael, right? You know, Michael's a pretty close friend of mine, so he would talk to me about anything. 2 months ago, he came to me, and this is what he told me. He told me that during class, he couldn't focus, you know, he would procrastinate, and he would daydream. And he wanted to ask me for some advice. But the thing is, even though it's such a common problem, right, I couldn't give him advice. So at the time, all I could do was to tell him to go consult a psychiatrist. And 2 weeks later, he did. And he came to me, and this is what he told me. You know what the therapist said? I have a mental disorder. What? Mental disorder? That mental disorder was ADHD. ADHD stands for Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder. Do you guys know how it happens? How people with ADHD are different from the rest of us? The thing is, a person with an ADHD, they have a different structured brain, right? And so, what happens is that they underproduce these neurotransmitters called dopamine and norepinephrine, which are responsible for our mood swings, anxiety, our sense of time, as well as other stuff, such as executive functions. And so, when they underproduce these kind of neurotransmitters, what ends up happening is that they become, you know, under-aroused, right? They need something to focus. It's not that they're ill. And so, to give an analogy, let's say you're juggling 12 tennis balls. And each ball represents a task, a responsibility, and a focus. And maybe try imagining that you focus on just one of those balls, right? While you're juggling those 12 balls. And while you're focusing on the one ball, try to focus on all the other balls. What ends up happening is that unless you're a genius, you wouldn't be able to keep track of all the movements, right? And so, it's a kind of an example of how ADHD works. And ADHD, right, is a neurodevelopmental disorder, which means that 70 to 80% is affected by genetics, and 20 to 30% is by environmental factors. But one important thing to mention is that genetic factors and environmental factors need to go in sync. So, for example, if you just have ADHD brain for it, doesn't mean you have ADHD. Example, I forget things, right? Do you guys forget things? Of course you do. We're all humans. You procrastinate. Maybe like, I forget to turn in my homework, I forgot to do a project. These are all symptoms of ADHD, but these does not mean you have ADHD, right? Because first of all, ADHD is a complex condition. So something like, and just because you experience these symptoms doesn't mean you have ADHD, because the real diagnosis start when these start to impair your life, right? And I'll be talking about some of the environmental factors that are being studied at the moment. First off, infamous social media, like TikTok, YouTube Shorts, Instagram Reels. I'm sure you've all heard it before, right? Especially the older generations, they blame the younger generations for having a lot more ADHD because of watching too much TikTok or watching too much YouTube Shorts, right? I've heard it all before, but this is completely wrong. Do you guys know why? Well, to go back on the topic, first of all, ADHD is a complex condition, and it comes with other learning disabilities as well, such as executive dysfunction or anxiety and depression, right? And so, ADHD, it's like a single factor like TikTok. It could never possibly cause ADHD. And another thing that people mistake is that correlation does not mean causation. What do I mean by that? Well, let's say, so ADHD is a recent condition, and before the 1900s, there was no such thing as ADHD. And especially with the rise of technology, that we've been able to depict what is ADHD. And it's not that because of TikTok that we have more ADHD, that there are more people with ADHD, but it's that just because of the advanced medical science. And the other main factors that are being studied at the moment is drug usage during pregnancy, such as smoking or drinking alcohol or using other drugs, and abusive household, which is very important, as well as stressful educational environment. So what happens is that the stress from these environments will induce ADHD symptoms. Cool. So even a complex condition like this, it has three types. We have inattentiveness, hyperactivity, and the combined type. The inattentiveness is characterized by a student who can't really focus, they get distracted easily, and they lack motivation, right? And hyperactivity is characterized by a person who overfidget, they overtalk, they cannot sit still. And the combined type displays both of these symptoms. And so, you might seem like ADHD is like very hard to treat, right? But the good news about it is that it's highly treatable. It's a very good thing. It's not a permanent condition. Because when you use medications, such as stimulants, which amplify the production of neurotransmitters, what ends up happening is that you don't feel under-aroused anymore, and your attention gets back to normal. These are some of the treatment plans that are most commonly used among people. So cognitive therapy and positive parenting, especially for young children. They're really good. And I've given you guys an overview of what ADHD is, right? But from what I've seen, like some of you guys who have ADHD, they feel very insecure and they feel out of place, right? Because you guys think you're different when in fact you're not. And to those people, I have something to say. Do you guys know anyone with ADHD who's very successful? You do? Huh, alright, cool. Did you guys know that Einstein, Bill Gates, Leonardo da Vinci had ADHD? All of them. Can you imagine Albert Einstein, the guy who revolutionized science and physics, having ADHD? Can you imagine like little Albert just studying in his desk like I can't focus, man, you know? And can you imagine Bill Gates, one of the greatest entrepreneurs who owns the biggest companies in the world, Microsoft? Seriously? Leonardo da Vinci, one of the greatest artists, scientist, sculptor, inventor, engineer. And so, I want to tell you guys, don't feel left out. And last but not least, I reach out to the audience. Because society is ever changing and it's ever fast paced. Because to meet new adaptations, we need new innovations and new technologies. And the people who meet those adaptations and challenges are students. Right? And so, I ask of you, to the audience, that we as humans, more importantly, as educators, that we must promise to keep an oath. An educational oath. That in education, no one should get left out. Thank you very much. Thank you. And also, I would also like to personally thank Mrs. Tari and Mr. Jiba for making this event possible, and all the staff members who helped me make this presentation. Thank you.